Hi, this is Brennan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here for another episode of Wuxia Weekend with Adam, Kenny, and Lady Chow Feng to talk about Black Magic, a 1975 film by Ho Meng-Hua, starring Ti Lung Lo Lieh, Ku Feng, Lily Li, and Tanny Tien. So this movie, it's basically, it's sort of like a black magic film where there's a woman who really wants to get her man, but he's already going to get married to another person, and so she recruits a black magic practitioner to force him to fall in love with her. And there's more to the plot than that, but it's a classic because it started a whole genre of films, and a lot of people will often prefer the movies that followed it. But this is a movie that I quite enjoy. But I'm curious because I don't think was this everybody's first time seeing this movie?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So what did everybody think of it? Number one.
It was definitely unexpected. Like it didn't. I don't know. It's very different from what we usually watch, and but I think that was sort of very clear from the get-go. Like from the opening scene, I was like, "Oh, it's that kind of movie, is it?" And yeah, it's not a bad thing. Like I enjoyed watching the movie. I had a box of popcorn and I was like sat there watching the movie, going, "Oh, okay, interesting." But yeah, I don't know. It's the special effects are a bit dated. I mean, it is an old movie after all, and I guess it's just that this era of people, they're all very obsessed with the sort of Thai curses. Like my dad, for example, like really likes listening to ghost stories about people placing these curses on people and like weird things that happen to people after they've offended a mysterious old person type of thing. And yeah, this was well, I thought it was sort of like a nice sort of introduction into that world of the Southeast Asian occultism, I guess. Yeah.
I was thoroughly disappointed in the movie. It was unexpected for me. I was expecting our usual, some kind of martial arts or something in it. And I'm not a horror fan anyway, but I mean, this wasn't like scary or anything, but it was just not what I was expecting. And so I was very disappointed in watching it, but I toughed it out and watched it anyway. I just saw everything that was coming, and there was nothing that was a surprise to me. So that even disappointed me even more.
So you would say, even though like horror movies aren't your favorite thing, like as a horror movie, it didn't even work for you. Like even like getting aside all the martial arts stuff that wasn't there, like just as a movie, it didn't appeal to you.
Yeah, it didn't appeal to me at all.
And I'm curious, how did you feel about Ti Lung's performance in this? Was it like a waste of his talent, in your opinion?
I thought it was definitely a waste of his talent. I don't know. At some points, I felt like there was overacting in it to me. I just think, and I've seen him in more dramatic roles. It's just, yeah, this whole thing was a waste of my time.
Adam, how'd you feel?
I liked it. I mean, it wasn't like an amazing movie, but it was like, I mean, it was something different than we usually watch. I wouldn't say I found it entirely predictable, certainly. I mean, it's the kind of movie where I really wasn't sure which way it was necessarily going to go. I mean, I mean, it was one of those movies where you don't know, is it going to be a big comeuppance thing, or is it going to be something where nothing works out for anybody? So I was kind of intrigued on that angle. It could have done a better job of creating more sympathy for the two innocent, for the innocent couple at the center, because I felt like they were almost kind of pushed to the side for most of the movie. So I really wasn't especially interested in. I mean, you asked the question if Ti Lung was wasted. It's like, yeah, I kind of feel he was, because that character is just kind of there. There wasn't anything to him. But that also meant the movie, as far as it being a horror movie, it wasn't scary for me, because I wasn't really worried about whether these characters would come out okay or not.
I would add to that. I think we should linger on that topic because number one, it'll tie to Dion's disappointment with the movie, which I think is good. But also, I feel like I found myself rooting more for the Tanny Tien character. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, I kind of wanted.
She's the most interesting character in the movie, no question.
Yeah. And so she's Mrs. Zhu, and she, she later sort of rejects that name because that's her ex-husband and wants to be called Lieh Yin. But I just found that that he and the Lily Li characters were the most cardboard cutout of all the characters in the movie, and you just didn't. I mean, you kind of got it. Like, I guess he had that thing where he was definitely in love with the woman he was engaged to, and he couldn't be bought by money. And that might have worked.
There was nothing bad about his performance. There was just nothing. The character just didn't grab me. That's all.
Yeah, no, and it was very sort of. I don't know. It almost you just didn't you didn't feel anything for him in that moment. And then when he did succumb to the influence of the black magic, you didn't really feel anything for him either. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he was kind of just a zombie at that point. Yeah. So it was just, he was just kind of sleepwalking once he was, Well, I mean, I don't know what, I mean, that was what it called for, but it just wasn't particularly interesting.
I just feel like in that movie, they could have gotten any other people to play those roles, and it would have been an okay movie. But to see some of my favorites in these roles, it was really sad for me.
Yeah, I mean, and I can definitely see where you're coming from because T. Lung is somebody you kind of expected to see a little bit more from him in this movie, maybe, and he's got so many other things he could contribute, and Lily Li is just kind of, she's really she's a very, very much on the side of things, and so it's
she gets barely any real part in the movie at all.
Yeah, so I think you really have to like the bad guys, number one, to enjoy the movie. But so maybe we should talk about the bad guys. And Dion, if you didn't like them, just maybe talk more about what you didn't like about them. But why don't we start with Ku Feng, because he's the black magic practitioner who plays Shan Qian Mi. He's kind of got like a unique hairstyle in this one. He's got sort of like I don't know what you call it, but it's like half long hair, like down to the jawline.
It's a bob.
It's a bob. Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
It definitely fits his face in an interesting way, and he's got sort of like a sleazy hippie vibe is how I would describe it. But I don't know. What do you guys think of the main bad guy?
I don't know. I thought it was great. I thought Ku Feng was great in this one. Like, I was really amused with that one scene where he's like casting, the magic on Tanny Tien's character, and she sees him like in, all dressed up in a suit, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot, Ku Feng's actually a pretty handsome guy, but it's just that I forever associate him with like sort of old scholarly master types. Like, he's got the elegant air, but never as like a handsome-ish man, if that makes sense. Like, and that particular was like, oh, he's actually pretty good looking.
I like the way they did that effect of having him suddenly just be in a suit. That was like it was kind of like the cartoon thing where someone looks at someone and they turn into a pork chop or something. It was just that really amused me.
And coming from my perspective, I beg to differ with Kenny. I always thought that Ku Feng was a very handsome man, and I love him in his old scholarly master Sifu roles. Even if he's a villain or a good guy, it doesn't matter. I think he's skillful in playing either role. I didn't find him attractive in this one, and it was just, I don't know, maybe it's my disappointment just washed over everything.
Well, I think you weren't meant to.
Attractive though, because like his dress throughout most of the movie was like in shabby,
but when she starts falling in love with him, you would expect him to be, to be better looking, like through her eyes. Yeah. But it just didn't connect with me.
But I also think the sleaziness of the character kind of affects how attractive he looks in this movie, because he's definitely like he's doing all these little things with his eyes. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's the scene where he milks the woman's breast and like his eyes bulge out of his head and he just looks like a real creep. and whenever he's being sneaky, he he's just he's really hamming up the eye shifting and all that stuff. So, but yeah, I like this role for him. I think I like Ku Feng as a villain. I like him as a hero. I also like him as sort of just like wild martial characters that have some kind of deep passion that they need to unleash. He's a great actor for these kind of roles, and this one I think visually the character really works. Like that image where and I think it's the cover image on the movie. It might not be, but there's a scene where he's holding the skull in the construction site, and he's trying to get Ti Lung to walk off the beam. And the way he's holding the skull, the way his hair is cut, the structure of his face, it all just creates a really compelling villainous stance for me. But what about so I guess the next character to talk about would be the Tanny Tien character. We discussed a little bit, but what did you guys think of her?
Sorry, go ahead, Ken.
Go on.
I thought she was the highlight of the movie, but I honestly would have liked it better if the movie had centered on her more consistently. I think that would have involved me more, because I feel like at the end, it's kind of in the middle of the movie. The movie has the most attention to her, and near the end, she kind of almost gets sidelined a little bit as other things are going on. I feel like that kind of made the last half hour a little less interesting, as she was just kind of there till she gets wiped out at the end. And I could have done with more of her character.
Yeah, she was definitely an interesting one. Like, yeah, she's obviously like a bad character. She's actually a bad guy in the movie, but it just feels like she's sympathetic in the way that she's getting involved with things that she doesn't understand, and and I guess it's sort of, it feels like there's a lesson there in that you can't use unnatural means to get what you want, otherwise the dark forces will take from you what you wanted from them in the first place, and that kind of thing, which was a interesting little sub theme there, I thought. But other than that, I think her acting was great, and she had the whole sort of rich, unreasonable young lady thing going on quite well for her, and I think she did quite well.
I think she played the part very well. I just didn't like her character, and You're Not Supposed to. I don't know. For some reason, I felt her kind of annoying. Not in a Candy Wen kind of annoying, but a different kind of annoying. And I'm not exactly sure what kind of annoying it was. But she was the most fleshed out character in the movie, besides Lo Lie's character and Ku Feng's character. Those were the three that were the most fleshed out.
Yeah,
I mean, that's very true, because like if we take any of the characters in the movie and say, okay, so what were they doing like a year ago? Like the only person we could really have an answer for is, Miss Zhao or Lo Yin was married to an old guy who was very rich, and Ku Feng's character was up to no good in the mountain village somewhere.
Yeah.
Those are the only characters that we really know anything about. But everybody else is just sort of like, well, they could literally be anyone else, and it wouldn't really make much of a difference there.
Yeah, and like I said, I was rooting for her, so I think I definitely liked the character. And I think she just did a good job with the role is kind of like you said, she's supposed to be annoying because she's like the she's trying to take this guy from the woman who he loves, but she's also she needs to be seductive, she needs to be like a powerful person who has all this money, and it just she's very good at what she needs to do in the film, and I think she has in these kind of roles she really excels. So I thought that it was a good fit for her, and I found the Lo Lie character quite a bit of fun too, and I mean I think that makes sense because he's so notorious for playing villains. But I was curious how you guys thought this role worked with him.
he had the whole skeeviness and his experience in playing villains. I would actually know, like, how many other movies have he been in at this point? Like 1975. I don't know.
I'm not sure the chronology. I have to look at it. I have to like go and actually compare. But I mean, I'm pretty sure he's been in villainous roles prior to this. But I could be wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Because I was just thinking like he had the manners of a sleazy villain down. I think like to be fair, like I don't think the movie like needed Nole to play this character. I mean, like yeah, like Leon was saying, like they're not really making good use of the actors that they have. Really, like any other person, I feel like would have just been exactly the same there.
I think part of what it was, I think the function he kind of served was to show that there are men that the Tanny Tien character is not interested in. Do you know what I mean? Like, so you could, because I felt like seeing her, you know, like sort of fawn over Ti Lung, it was useful to see her react negatively to someone else. Do you know what I mean? It just kind of made the character a little bit more.
And that was fine, but they could have gotten someone else besides Lo Lieh to play that part. It didn't have be.
That's true.
Someone of his nature.
Though I have to say, I kind of liked, like I liked his performance as the character, because I think if they brought somebody else in, it might have weakened the movie, even though it's a minor part.
I thought so too. I thought he was he was an intriguing character. I think it added to the movie having him in that role. But you know,
well, the thing I liked about him was number one, the way that they dressed him, like his attire was fitting for the time and kind of had this fashionable thing going on. But he looked like somebody who, you know, was possibly spending all of the very little money that he earned on creating this facade, because he clearly couldn't afford all of the black magic that he was paying for. But also the confidence that he had when he basically blatantly refuses to pay for the service. You know, I enjoyed that. But I think his biggest function was really to show what the Ku Feng character can do to somebody. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he was. I mean, because they could have technically started the movie with somebody talking to you know, Tanny Tien and being like, oh well, you know, hey, I know this guy, you know, just like happens at the noodle shop with Lo Lieh's character. They could have started it with her and skipped a step, but it by creating kind of one cycle ahead, it created these are the consequences of dealing with this guy. So it allowed them to set things in motion a little bit. But yeah, actually, the worst actor in the movie was the dog. That was like the least unconvincing, threatening dog. When she's threatening the guy, he's gonna tear your throat out. The dog's just sitting there, like with its tongue out, just like the happiest, friendliest dog in the world. It's like, no, I did not buy that dog as an attack dog at all. It's unconvincing.
What about the special effects, which we've touched on a little bit, and just the gore factor of the movie? Because that's kind of the thing that it's tame now, especially compared to the movies that came after it. But that's sort of the thing that it was noteworthy for. I'm curious how you guys reacted to that stuff.
I feel like they did a better job even in the older movies. Like the special effects, like, okay, so we only really see the special effects at the last, if we can call it, even call it a battle, like the final battle between the two magicians, and that was just ridiculous. I mean, it was just the very thin black lines flying across the screen is not a special effect, really, is it? Like that was like a facepalm moment for me. It's like, oh really? And then you're gonna have like a highlighter going from the heavens downwards to for the shielding effect. I was like, oh man, that was so bad.
I liked a lot of the effects as far as the stuff like the worms under the skin and the just little things like the little wriggling worm things in the coconut, you know, early in the movie. I mean they are dated, kind of cheesy looking effects, but I thought they were effective. They kind of got the mood across. And I enjoyed the whole disintegrating people thing when people would die of the death spell. I mean, it's really, it's not something I would say, wow, that was an amazing effect, but it just had the right aesthetic for me for this kind of movie. So on the whole, I was fine with the effects. But then you're right about the last movie though, when they really try and go big blockbuster finish, they kind of overstretch their bounds a little bit there at the end.
It definitely wasn't as gory as I thought it was going to be, or because someone had told me that I shouldn't watch it because I didn't like horror films. And this was like last year because I was going to watch it then. But they said don't watch it because you don't like horror films. So then when I sat down and did watch it, then I was like, okay, why would they tell me that? Because there's nothing in this that scares me, grosses me out, or anything. The special effects were, I guess, good for the time because that's all that they had. But after, watching like Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff, it's not going to.
You know what's interesting? I think people mean very different things when they say shock and gore and gross. And so, because it's interesting, I like horror movies, and so I'm usually pretty inoculated against this stuff, but this actually had a pretty big effect on me when I first saw it because so much of it was oriented around food and worms and things that are like parasitic. And so I guess when normally when you invoke gore, you're thinking, oh, like Freddy Krueger cutting somebody open and that sort of thing. And there really wasn't a whole lot of that sort of thing going on in this film. Most of the shock stuff was the guy drinks coconut water and then they open the coconut and there's all these little thin red worms in there.
Worms. Yeah, that worked for me. Yeah. That part worked.
Yeah, that stuff really creeped me out because then I'm imagining it in my body and it's just like, I found it very effective. And I found the fact that it was a lot of it was food stuff. You can't help but imagine the taste of things when people are eating them. Do you know what I mean? So it added to it for me.
Well, it's a lot that goes to the thing with horror movies. Being relatable is often effective. I mean, it's kind of a comment people make is that, like, in the movie The Thing, The Thing is a really over the top special effects, gore everywhere movie. But the thing that often makes people really flinch in that is the point where everyone has to get a blood test. Because it's like you know that you're like, oh man, they're gonna draw blood. I know exactly what that feels like, and it puts people on edge in a way that something really over the top doesn't.
But
say, like as far as like horror movies here, like this isn't the jump scare. Ultra gore type, like the whole movie has got like, well, I say the whole movie, but the creepy scenes are the ones like where they try to instill a sense of unease in you. Like a lot of it's just like, between the music, like the very jarring sounds that they chose for the soundtrack here, and the weirdness that you see on the screen makes it's just very unsettling as opposed to making me feel fear or shock or whatever. It's just like a slightly uncomfortable, like sitting on a lumpy cushion type of thing rather than
it's more of a body horror thing than like a fear thing. Like I would definitely agree. Like it's not like Killer Snakes is a scary movie in my opinion, and this is not scary in that way. This is like a movie where, if you watch it late at night with all the lights out, you're probably not going to have any trouble getting to bed after. You might have trouble opening the fridge in the middle of the night. Huh?
I said that's how I watched it.
Yeah,
at night with all the lights out in my bed, and I kept getting up to get food, so it didn't affect me at all.
But yeah, this is like very much kind of the Tales of the Crypt model of horror. It's like a person who isn't a particularly good person does something bad and ends up paying a horrible price for it. It's kind of in that kind of moral horror universe. And so yeah, it's on the whole, those movies tend not to be the scariest.
And I suppose it might be scary if somebody like really deeply believes in like black magic or something like that. Like maybe it would be more scary. I don't know. Sort of like how like The Exorcist is a lot more scary if you believe in the devil and you believe in all of the things that are going on in the movie. But I don't know. I think I think just in general, as scary movies go, I wouldn't rank it highly. I would say it's more about gore is the wrong word, but sort of that sort of horror element to it that it makes you wince, it makes you uneasy.
Yeah, and I will say it has a good. I like the atmosphere of it, even though it wasn't scary. I felt like it was building kind of this working occult universe that I understood as the movie went on. So it may not be scary, but I felt like the supernatural elements worked.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I agree that it had that kind of an atmosphere, and I think being made in 1975 also really helped. It generally helps with a lot of horror movies for me.
Yeah, it's good. I like the aesthetic of that era for horror.
But yeah, I don't know. What about the overall story? Did anybody have any complaints or anything that they particularly liked about it?
I think Dion mentioned like that there wasn't really any surprises, and I agree with like I know that it seems like it would it could go in any sort of ways, like maybe in a more tragic way, sort of Chan Cheh style of people actually dying and stuff. But the good guys all sort of survived in the end. Like the fact that the good magician existed sort of I guess it invalidated a lot of the tension that could have been if these curses and stuff were existed and they had no like sort of known way of like resolving it, and only through accidentally killing Ku Feng's character that they discovered that they're actually fine afterwards. Well, that's there were different. The fact that you have this. So I say Deus Ex Machina, but he was really the good doctor didn't really the good magician didn't really do. He gave a lot of information, and he was I don't know. Like I'd say his presence definitely took away from the movie rather than enhanced it.
Well, I'd say, as much as I liked the introductory scene of this movie, on the one hand, it was an interesting scene in isolation, but in the context of the whole movie, it sets up, wow, there's this really powerful good magician, and he's more powerful than the bad magician, and the bad magician is really scared of him.
Yeah.
Which is not a great dynamic to set up for a horror movie.
Yeah, they really should have handicapped the good magician in some way, or made him less accessible to the heroes. Like so that there was some. Uh-huh. Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. It's because you right from the beginning, Ku Feng is just like terrified of this good magician.
Yeah,
and so it kind of But I also agree. I like the opening. I like the opening sequence. So there were some things about it I didn't quite understand, but I thought it was a good opener, and I think they also established sort of Ku Feng. His character has this pattern of like using the women that hire him as shields for to deflect the good magician's powers. He does it to the woman that pays him in the beginning, and first he ties her to that post, but then he uses her as a shield, and then he does it to Tanny Tien at the end of the movie, where she ends up getting hit with some of that energy, and I don't know, I guess being rapidly aged or something. Go ahead.
I know we mentioned earlier that you like the sort of the death magic effects, but I think all of the people who we see decay when they died were the ones who employed the black magic rather than like the death magic being used on them. So the couple at the beginning, were killed by the death magic of Ku Feng's character, but they didn't decay; that they remained as a whole corpse. But everybody who did decay were the ones that actually, either enlisted Ku Feng's character to help them, or were Ku Feng himself, I guess.
Which is one of the things I had a question about, because like the Tanny Tien, like I understood why Lo Lie's character did that, because he had been fed the coconut water, and it made sense that he would when he died something like that would happen to him. What I didn't get was why Tanny Tien's character died in that manner. Do you know what I mean? Like she decays and there's all these worms coming out of her.
I mean, she was also technically the target of the love spell, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess that's
true. I guess that's true. Yeah, she was in two. In fact, she was initially a target of the one by Lolier's
Yeah.
efforts, and then by when he brought the azaleas to her, and we had that scene where he was, dressed in a spiffy suit.
But I like to think that the decay, if it died as a result of the curse, they'd be dead. But the decay was actually as a result of them meddling with dark forces, and this was like the price for meddling is them being dragged to hell or whatever. This is like me sort of embellishing in my mind what happens to these people after the story. But the decay felt a bit more special than just them being eroded by the good guy's energy or whatever, or as a result of I see it more as a backlash for using dark magic.
No, that makes sense. What did you guys think of the whole aspect of the? I mean, it didn't really get too deep into this, but there was that little bit where Ti Lung is getting medical treatment for what affects him, and I think the same thing happens to Lily Li's character, and so there is this kind of conflict going on where it's like modern medicine isn't able to help the characters, and the good magician has to come in and provide remedies for them.
If in doubt, brain surgery, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's obviously the
Yeah.
way.
That seems a little abrupt, I have to say.
But that's the times. But that was the time back then. They seemed to go to some kind of surgery for everything instead of trying to treat it in other ways. So if, 1975-ish, brain surgery would have been the way to go.
And he was in the hospital for 3 months, he said. So he was in long recovery for that. But yeah, that didn't, the 1975, I wouldn't want to have brain surgery at that time. I mean, it's better than decades earlier, but it still didn't look too, it didn't look like the kind of procedure that you want, especially if it's not going to do anything. But to be fair, they said he had a worm in his brain, so they probably did need to perform brain. Like, what else is a doctor going to do? If you tell a doctor, oh no, it's just a case of black magic, they're not gonna,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the sort of those sort of medical scenes were drawing on the fact that, or I say rampant rumors, but the sort of late night radio shows where they talk about these people have these sort of curses on them, and they're haunted by snakes and bees and all that you can't solve with science, and I think it's just there to add to the edge factor more than anything else.
Mhm.
Did anybody have any scenes that they really didn't like for some reason, or that they really did like?
As you guys know, I have a strong bias against construction scenes.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, the movie opened like after the initial scene, we get the construction scene. I was waiting for David Chang to show up, but he never did. So I found that sign disappointing on multiple levels.
Yeah,
I thought that
Oh, go ahead.
the way that he cast spells with the naked women, those were very interesting scenes. To me, anyway. I don't know much about black magic, but I'm pretty sure that if someone told me to take off my clothes to have a spell perform, I probably wouldn't do it. But that's me and my modesty.
I think most
And my
people would
unbelief.
probably not do it either. I think these were all very determined people that were going to him. Though, interestingly enough, he didn't ask Lolier to take off his clothes. He just asked the ladies.
No,
to.
he didn't. Just the lady.
Yeah, I think he had an additional agenda going on.
Well, he was
Yeah.
leering at Tanny Tien's character quite a bit, wasn't he? So-
He was leering at
he
the other
was
woman, too.
Not subtle.
Yeah.
Oh, my question is, was the breast milk like a special effect, or did they somehow manage to find models who had recently given birth, and they're like, okay, we need you to be topless in this
Okay.
movie?
My
I think
opinion. My opinion is that was real breast milk in that scene.
Yeah.
I think that woman was lactating.
Because we only ever see, I think, one person do it, because in the later scene it's a body double.
Yeah, that was definitely a body double.
So I think they just found one woman, and they actually used her in the first scene, and they used her as a body double in the second scene. That's my opinion.
I thought that was just that was like one of the weird parts. It's like, did they have to like show the squeezing of the breast milk?
That was really. I don't have ever seen that in a movie before, so that was very unusual.
So my argument for why they should keep that in is that the fact that he's putting real breast milk in there makes it all that much more like
potent magically.
No, not potent magically, but all that much more unnerving. That there's like that it's not like a tube next to her, just putting it into the thing. It's like it's real, human breast milk. I think that kind of adds to the grossness factor of the movie.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, you guys have not seen Boxer's Omen, so like the where this stuff leads to is just like some very.
This is nothing.
Yeah,
it's just the so-called slippery slope, basically.
It's a very slippery slope. Yeah, because in that movie, there are scenes in that like make me want to vomit. Do you know what I mean? And again, I watch a lot of horror movies, and they don't really affect me, but. Something about the way food is utilized in these films, and you see traces of it here. But by the time you see a movie like Boxer's Omen, it's really intense. Like it's not subtle at all. Like this looks like a very subtle movie compared to Boxer's Omen.
Speaking of food, actually, like the opening scene where he's like slicing the chest of the man, like that just made me crave pork belly for some reason.
I think that was pork belly. I think that definitely looked like
it was like a slab of like really fatty pork belly. I was like, I could do some pork belly.
In fact,
that did look pretty tasty, I have to say. Yeah, that was a weird reaction I had to. It's like, a disgusting scene, but that looks pretty good.
But also that added to my horror, because even though I knew it wasn't human skin, I knew it was pork belly, and he's cutting it with that knife, and then he puts the knife in his mouth, and I keep thinking you're gonna get trichinosis, Ku Feng. You're gonna.
Yeah, I that crossed my mind as well. That's some serious cross contamination.
And the head was just a really bad prop. The head that he puts onto the.
Yeah.
But the other scene that I thought was kind of creepy was when they dig up the body and he has to burn the lower jaw, and just for a moment the corpse's eyes open up and then they close. And in most movies I feel like she would have like done something, but just the fact that she awakened briefly really bothered me.
Yeah, I thought that she was really actually going to do something, and then when she took the flame away from the chin and her eyes closed again, it was like, okay. But then the white stuff dribbling out of her mouth, and he collects it for the spell. I'm just like, oh, okay. That was the grossest part for me, I think.
Well, I think what bothered me about it was it just sort of like the way that her eyes opened and then closed, it just really sort of made death prominent in your mind. Like it just was like, oh, this is like, I don't know, just a really bleak image of what it means to be dead.
They were doing something really blasphemous in that scene, was the feeling I got, at least. That was a transgression against death.
That scene definitely stuck out. The other scene that I thought was kind of coolly shot was when Lily Li is in bed and she doesn't die, but you kind of think she dies, like that night when she is first afflicted with the death spell, and she has that vision of all those women hopping around her. They're all like radiating with green, light or something. Something about that scene I thought looked really, really, really neat. And it was kind of like the Ku Feng scene. It was sort of like something out of it was like a really heavy-handed cinematic tactic, but it worked.
Yeah, I agree with that scene. I like that one as well.
Yeah, I have to say, if there's scenes I didn't like some of the ones were like, and again, I think it kind of gets into the wasting of Ti Lung here, where some of the scenes where he's supposed to be in love with Tanny Tien felt obligatory more than anything else. Do you know what I mean? Like it felt like it just felt like here he is in a pool, like snuggling with her in a pool, and it didn't really have any. It didn't have any weight to it. It was and I was a little confused about like what mental state he was supposed to be in exactly, how much of his former mind was still there.
Yeah, well, I think too that would be a place where I think the movie would have worked better if you were more firmly in the viewpoint of Tanny Tien throughout the movie, because then you could have had her reaction to, oh, she's got him now, but him being in this kind of weird state. And I don't know. I just feel like the movie would have worked better if it had a stronger concentration on her as a main character.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think that would have made the movie stronger. I mean, I think we got a lot of her, but I do agree with those scenes. And I really did like sort of her just, I don't know, commitment to this project of ensnaring Ti Lung. It was a very, I mean, it was very intense. It's like the scene where she shows up the night before his wedding and she's drunk in his bath. Well, she's not really drunk; she's feigning drunkenness. And I thought that scene played really well. And it was probably one of the scenes too where I thought where his performance felt like it was more fitting for what was going on. It seemed to make better use of him.
Also, that scene was like the only one where you got any sort of like action from Ti Lung's character. Yeah, I mean, he comes in, takes off his clothes, does like 3 push-ups, and then it's like, oh yeah, workout complete. that always bothers me. The 3, I think it's like 2 push-ups. It's like this really minimal amount of push-ups that he does, and then he goes to start some other exercise, which presumably he's also going to cut very short, and then he's interrupted by the sounds in his bathroom. But that. I mean, I get that we don't want to sit there and watch him do 10 push-ups because it might be time-consuming. I don't know. I think I'd enjoy watching him do 10
I don't know. From my perspective, I would have enjoyed it. I mean, he was eye candy in this movie, so...
they just stuck with the push-ups, then had the noise from the bathroom, and then he does 2 push-ups, noise, the switching exercises where they went awry.
So you could satisfy both groups. There's nothing about push-ups that prevents dialogue from taking place. Do you know what I mean? So they could have had the dialogue occur around the push-ups. But then I like the whole scene where like the wife, the woman he's engaged to calls, and Tanny Tien is in the background trying to create a disturbance, and so I just like the dynamic in that scene. But yeah, well, I want to ask you, Dion, though, since you didn't like the movie, what changes would you make to this film? Like, what do you think would have made you enjoy this movie more?
I would have definitely needed some action in this movie to enjoy it. I don't know, even if it were just like maybe some kind of brawl fight or something, I don't know. There just needed to be some kind of action in it. It was just too drama-centered and boring for me. And maybe if they had used a different person in Ti Lung's role, and even Lily Li. I mean, I love them as actors, but I prefer them in different kinds of roles. Yeah. And this was just really, like you said at the beginning, or someone said, cardboard cutouts. Yeah. They were just there to help the story along and not really getting to know them. And kind of some of the acting, to me, felt overacted. And then somewhere it was like cardboard acting. But yeah, I just think better choices with the actors would have been better and added some action to it.
I'm wondering how you would react to Boxer's Omen now, because that has a lot of action in it, and it's still got a lot of the other elements that are present in this movie. But I guess that's besides the point at this stage. But we'll have to see how everybody responds to the sequel when we get to that. The other
now that I know more what to expect in this movie, I'll probably look at it through different eyes.
Well, the sequel's more popular too, I think. Like I've never taken a poll, but like I'm pretty sure more people are like I see more people rave about the sequel in like reviews and stuff. It's kind of hard to measure that because I might just be looking at the 3 favorable reviews. But I'm pretty sure it kind of ups a lot of the stuff that's going on in this one. And so the final thing I wanted to get into a little bit was the music, because that is sort of avoidable in this movie. You can't really, not hear the music in it, and I don't know. I found that style of music that they play, the sort of upbeat. I don't know what you would call it, like the upbeat music they play when people are driving and stuff in the film from like 1975. That stuff annoys the hell out of me. That is like it drives me up the wall. I think because it's stuff that I must have heard when I was very young all the time watching TV, because that sound was still sort of present up through the early 80s. And I've just never liked that style of music as background music in a film. Especially in a horror movie, it really thwarts the building of the atmosphere. You have to every time a scene with that music comes on, I have to ease back into the mood of the film.
Yeah, there's just something innately cheesy about that music for me as well. It's like it automatically. I wouldn't say I'm irritated by it, but I find it kind of funny, and it does pull me out of the story. It's something that hasn't aged well, that's for sure.
I did like the use of sound effects though, like when they're using black magic, and I like it's one of the things I like about Shaw Brothers in general is they'll get the right sound to play to sort of indicate, okay, this is what's going on right now. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's like he's using this technique, or okay, no, black magic is now happening. But yeah, I think I don't know. I think we need to wrap it up at this point because we're getting on 45 minutes. But I'd say the movie is available on Amazon Prime, so you can see it streaming if you want. I think it's worth checking out if you're interested in this genre of movie, but like Dion was saying, it's a very different type of film than we normally cover here, and it's definitely the kind of film that it has a pace to it that's not very, it's not a breakneck pace by any stretch, and there isn't really any action except for that final scene, which is like more of a duel between two users of magic. So it's sort of like it's definitely not like, I've seen a lot of movies where they have like the Taoist priests sort of fending each other off and stuff, and there are much better films in terms of watching a magical duel than this one. This one, the magic duel at the end is kind of like, number one, there's the effects, but number two, it just doesn't have all the little flourishes that I really like to see in the magical duels in these films, where people are sort of like very rapidly throwing talismans at each other and reciting prayers and stuff.
Another issue too just goes back to the fact that they've so established that the good magician is more powerful that it's like, oh, okay, now there's standoff. Now he's going to beat the bad guy. It didn't have any stakes because of the power that's set up.
There was one moment where he shifts his attention to Ti Lung and tries to direct his attack on him, but then the good magician just ports his barrier over to him.
Exactly. So yeah, it wasn't that gripping a conclusion there.
So
I'd say calling it like a magical duel was a bit of a stretch. It's all like these two people standing there in poses. Use your imagination for the rest.
Yeah, we'll have to bring in a movie that has like a real proper magical duel in it as a point of comparison, because when they do it well, it's really nice. But I think this movie's specialty is really more the unnerving, wormy stuff that's going on throughout it.
Yeah.
And again, I think it played, like, those effects are fairly inexpensive and cheap. They get like a coconut and put worms in them. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I don't know. Any parting thoughts before we head out?
Nope. I've said what I have to say.
All right. Okay, so we're going to continue with Black Magic as a theme for the month. I think next week we're doing Black Magic 2, but we're going to probably confer, because if this one didn't go over well with people, maybe we'll swap things around and accommodate people's schedules. But likely we'll be doing Black Magic 2 next week, and if not, we'll be doing a similar type of movie, and we're going to be doing that for the whole month of October. And so, again, if people want to support the podcast, they can go to our Patreon page and support us. That helps us get, movies and things so that we're not always just going to Prime or whatever. But we do try to stick to Prime, not just to make it easier for all of us, but also to make it easy for the listeners to go and watch the movies that we're talking about, because not everybody can gain easy access to all these kinds of films. So, all right, so we will let you go, and we will talk to you later.